Robin, a man squarely in the middle of life's chaotic dance at 34, woke up to what he didn't yet know would be the gloomiest day of his existence. The morning started innocently enough. Same old, same old. He sprawled on the couch, thumb lazily swiping through social media, the faint gurgle of the coffee maker humming in the background like a loyal sidekick. Then, ping. A message from HR popped up on his phone. Urgent meeting, come in ASAP. His stomach did a little flip, not the good kind, like when you realize the roller coaster drop is steeper than you signed up for. Still, Robin, ever the optimist, talked himself down. Maybe it's that promotion I've been gunning for, he muttered, sipping his too-hot coffee and wincing as it scorched his tongue. Stranger things had happened, right? He shuffled to the kitchen, where his wife, Gloris, sat hunched over her phone, her breakfast untouched. At 30, she still had that spark, or at least she used to. Lately, she'd been colder than a freezer-burned popsicle, and Robin couldn't quite pin down why. Stress, maybe? Hormones? The fact that their neighbor's yappy dog barked at 3 a.m. every night? He leaned in to kiss her goodbye, and she barely flicked her eyes up from the screen, muttering a flat, "See you later." Ouch. It stung, but Robin brushed it off. She's just in a mood, he told himself. We've been married 7 years. Moods happen. The drive to work was a blur of overthinking. Robin's mind churned through the last 6 months with Gloris. Where had the spark gone? They used to laugh at stupid stuff, like the time she accidentally dyed her hair green with cheap box dye, and he called her the Wicked Witch of the West for a week. Now, barely a smirk. At 34 and 30, they were still childless, a topic Gloris dodged like a pro boxer slipping punches. Maybe that's it, Robin mused, gripping the steering wheel. Kids could shake things up, or maybe she's just tired of my dumb jokes. He chuckled to himself, imagining her face if he suggested a baby over dinner. To hell with it, he decided. Tonight, I'm pulling out all the stops. Candles, takeout, the works. Romantic Robin's making a comeback. By the time he pulled into the office parking lot, he'd almost convinced himself the day was salvageable. Almost. That HR message still gnawed at him, but he shoved it down deep, plastered on a grin, and strode through the glass doors like a man who had it all together. "Morning, team," he called out, waving at his co-workers. Sarah from accounting looked up from her spreadsheets with a half smile, and Dave from marketing gave a distracted nod over his triple espresso. "What's good, folks? Dave, you spill that coffee yet? Or are we still betting on noon?" Robin quipped, leaning against the copier like a stand-up comic warming up the crowd. A few chuckles rippled through the cubicles, and for a fleeting second he felt like the king of the office. Whatever HR had in store, he'd face it with a smirk. Little did he know, the universe was already winding up for the knockout punch. Robin plopped into his desk chair, the faint squeak of the springs a familiar soundtrack to his workday. He flipped open his laptop, ready to tackle some emails, then snapped it shut again. Right. HR first, he reminded himself, standing up with a little bounce. In his head, the scene was already playing out like a cheesy movie montage. The HR manager clapping him on the back. Logan, his straight-shooting boss, grinning like a proud dad, and a shiny new title on the table. "Robin, you've been killing it," they'd say. He could almost hear the applause. Heck, he felt like whistling a tune, maybe something jaunty, like Sweet Caroline, just to really sell the vibe. Life was about to get good. But the second he stepped into the HR office, the air shifted. No confetti, no smiles, just 3 stony faces staring him down. The HR manager, Logan, and some random suit he vaguely recognized from the 5th floor. "Have a seat, Robin," the HR manager said, her voice flat as a pancake. He sat, still clinging to his promotion fantasy, until the words hit him like a freight train. "You're being terminated. Effective immediately." His jaw dropped. Terminated? Him? Before he could even process it, they dropped the bomb. Complaints from female colleagues about inappropriate behavior and creating a hostile work environment. Robin blinked, waiting for the punchline. Surely this was a prank. Dave from marketing finally getting revenge for that time Robin hit his stapler. Except it wasn't. The accusations were laid out in black and white. Dates, times, specific incidents. Harassment, they said. Verbal insults after rejection. Robin's stomach lurched. He barely talked to anyone outside his team, let alone harassed them. He was the guy who apologized to the coffee machine when he bumped it. "This is insane," he sputtered, hands flailing. I wouldn't, but they weren't listening. The HR manager slid a termination letter across the desk, and Logan wouldn't even meet his eyes. Next thing he knew, security was escorting him out like he was some creep caught stealing office supplies. His cheerful, "See you later," to Sarah on the way out, was met with an awkward head duck. The door clicked shut behind him, and that was that. Robin stumbled to his car, legs wobbly, and slid into the driver's seat. For a long minute he just stared at the steering wheel, hands trembling like he'd downed 6 espressos. His brain was a tornado, shock, anger, confusion all swirling together. He, Robin, the guy who once spent an hour helping a coworker fix her printer, accused of this? It didn't add up. Fumbling for his phone, he dialed John, the only guy in his department he trusted not to sugarcoat things. "Hey man," John answered, voice low. "I'm sorry, Robin. I don't know what's going on, but the rumors are nasty. Some people think it's a setup, though. Hang in there." A setup? Robin thanked him, hung up, and let the phone clatter onto the passenger seat. A setup. The word rattled around his skull as he sucked in deep breaths, trying to calm the storm inside. 1, 2, 3, he counted, exhaling slowly. Okay, I'll figure this out. Finally, he turned the key in the ignition. The engine sputtered to life, and Robin pulled out of the parking lot at a snail's pace, like he was driving through molasses. His romantic dinner plan felt 1,000,000 miles away now. The road stretched ahead, blurry through the haze of his thoughts, and somewhere deep down, he wondered if the universe was just warming up for round 2. Robin's grip on the steering wheel tightened as he crawled through traffic, the slow rumble of the engine doing little to drown out the chaos in his head. He fished his phone out of his pocket and dialed Gloris again. 1 ring, 2, straight to voicemail. "Come on, pick up," he muttered, tossing the phone onto the seat. That's when he noticed it, an unread text from the bank, blinking at him like a bad omen. With a sinking feeling, he swiped into the banking app, fumbling his password twice. Their joint account, the one with $52,000 of hard-earned savings, was empty. Zilch, nada. A transfer to some mystery account time-stamped that morning. "What the?" Robin blurted, loud enough to make a passing pedestrian glance at him. "Is this a solar eclipse or some magnetic storm screwing with my life?" he asked the universe, half expecting the dashboard to answer. By the time he pulled into the driveway, his nerves were frayed to threads. He stumbled into the house, hoping Gloris would be there with a rational explanation. Instead, he found her in the bedroom calmly packing suitcases. "Hey, honey, we need to talk," he started, then froze. Those weren't her clothes going into the bags. They were his, shirts, socks, that ugly sweater his mom gave him last Christmas, all neatly folded like she was doing him a favor. "Gloris, what's going on?" he demanded, voice cracking. She turned, and instead of an answer, she laughed, a sharp, bitter sound that hit him like a slap. "Oh, Robin, don't play dumb," she sneered, crossing her arms. "I know all about your little antics at work, harassing women, acting like a creep. Sound familiar?" His jaw dropped. It was the HR script, word for word, straight from her mouth. Before he could protest, she barreled on. "You're a potential cheater, unreliable, a total weirdo. I should have seen it sooner." Robin stood there, dumbfounded as his wife morphed into a stranger. In his head he screamed, "God, what did I do to deserve this? Where did I go wrong?" His spiraling thoughts were cut short by Gloris's next salvo, delivered with venom. "You're not a man. You're pathetic." He blinked, reeling. "That's not true," he managed, voice shaky. "What's even happening right now?" She didn't miss a beat. "You're a disgusting pervert, that's what," she shouted. Wait, what? He shot back, flailing for sense. Then he remembered the bank. Hold on, where's our money? The $52,000. Gloris smirked, unfazed. I told you, you're a pervert. I took it so you wouldn't blow it on women. Robin nearly keeled over. Women? What women? As if on cue, she snatched his laptop from the dresser, flipped it open, and thrust it in his face. Explain this, she hissed. The screen glowed with Google search history, queries for escort services, intimate encounters, stuff he wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. Robin's eyes widened. I've never, he stammered, but she was already on a roll. After your coworkers turned you down, you went straight online looking for love, you creep. Take your bags and get out of my house, or I'll make sure you're dragged out. He stared at her, the woman he'd loved for 7 years, now a whirlwind of rage and accusations. The laptop, the money, the job. It was all crashing down, and he didn't have a single foothold to cling to. Numbly, he grabbed the suitcases, dragging them to the car one by one. The weight of his shirts and socks felt heavier than it should have as he tossed them into the trunk. He slid into the driver's seat, staring blankly through the windshield, still no closer to understanding how his life had imploded in less than 12 hours. Somewhere in the back of his mind, a tiny voice whispered, "This can't get worse." Oh, how wrong it was. Robin drove aimlessly through the city, the hum of the engine his only companion as streetlights blurred past. He didn't have a destination, just a desperate need to keep moving, as if sitting still would let the wreckage of his life catch up. Eventually, his stomach growled loud enough to snap him out of his daze, and he pulled into a Walmart parking lot. Shuffling through the aisles like a zombie, he grabbed a sad-looking sandwich, a bag of chips, and a soda. Comfort food for a man whose life had just been flushed down the cosmic toilet. Back in his car, he tore into the sandwich, crumbs falling onto his lap as he stared blankly at the windshield. It wasn't gourmet, but it was something. His phone buzzed, shattering the silence. A text from Gloris. Filing for divorce. Papers will be ready soon. Short, brutal, final. Robin let the phone slip from his hand onto the passenger seat, the words sinking in like lead. 7 years, gone. He rubbed his face, trying to process it, then dialed his parents, Edward and Margaret, the last lifeline he could think of. His dad picked up, voice icy enough to frost the line. Gloris told us everything, Robin. Your behavior. We raised you better than that. In the background, his mom's muffled sobs cut deeper than the words. Dad, it's not true. He started, but Edward hung up before he could finish. Robin dropped the phone again, staring at it like it had betrayed him too. Gloris hadn't just torched their marriage, she'd turned his own family against him. Night fell, and Robin stayed parked at Walmart, the lot emptying out as shoppers trickled away. He reclined the seat, the upholstery creaking under him, and tried to sleep. Every creak of the car, every distant honk, jolted him awake. By morning, he was a rumpled mess, hair wild, eyes bloodshot, but he had a plan. He drove to a cheap lawyer's office, scraping together almost his last dollars for a consultation. Sitting across from a guy in a wrinkled suit who smelled faintly of stale coffee, Robin laid out the basics. The house is hers, inherited, the lawyer said, flipping through some notes. You've got no claim there. The $52,000 from your joint account? That's trickier. If you've got bank statements, we might claw back half, but it's a fight. What about her accusations? Robin asked, voice hoarse. She's saying I'm some creep, using stuff from my job and my Google history against me. The lawyer chuckled, a dry, humorless sound. Yeah, that'll muddy the waters. Sounds like she's got a playbook and she's running it hard. Robin nodded grimly. A setup. It had to be. He thanked the guy, shuffled out and slid back into his car. Digging through his wallet, he counted what was left. A crumpled 10 and 50. Enough for a burgers, maybe, but a lawyer to fight Gloris? Forget it. He leaned his head against the steering wheel, the weight of it all pressing down. The universe wasn't just kicking him while he was down. It was doing a full tap dance on his grave. Robin cruised through the city, the weight of his crumbling life still pressing down on him when a neon sign caught his eye. Tyler's Tavern. A bar. Perfect. He pulled into the lot, shoved his keys in his pocket, and trudged inside, the dim lighting and faint hum of chatter wrapping around him like a blanket. All he wanted was to drown the pain. Whiskey, beer, anything to mute the noise in his head. He slumped onto a stool, ready to order the strongest thing on the menu, when the bartender, a wiry guy with a mop of curly hair and a grin too chipper for the occasion, leaned over. "Rough day, huh? I'm Tyler," he said, clocking Robin's misery from a mile away. "You look like you've been hit by a truck, man. Let's skip the booze. How about a mountain herb tea instead? Calms the nerves, tastes like heaven. Trust me." Robin raised an eyebrow but shrugged. "Sure, whatever." The tea arrived, steaming and oddly fragrant, and as he sipped it, the knot in his chest loosened just a fraction. Tyler propped his elbows on the bar, ready to listen, and Robin, maybe because of the tea, maybe because he had nothing left to lose, spilled the whole mess. The firing, the missing money, Gloria's venom, the divorce. Tyler nodded along, then squinted, piecing it together like a detective in a bad TV movie. "Hold up, Robin. This screams setup. Your boss, Logan, he's got to be in on it with your wife. How else did she know about the work stuff so fast?" Robin froze, the tea halfway to his mouth. Logan. Glorious. The connection hit him like a lightning bolt. Of course. He fumbled for his phone and dialed Rick, the paranoid old neighbor who treated the street like his personal surveillance gig. "Hey, Rick, how's it going? Health okay?" Robin asked, keeping it casual. "Listen, have you noticed anything weird around my place lately?" Rick hummed and hawed, then perked up. "Well, now that you mention it, yeah, a black car. Saw it yesterday and a few times before. Thought you got yourself a new ride." Robin's pulse quickened. Black car. Logan drove a sleek black sedan. Robin had seen it in the office lot 100 times. "Wait, Rick," he said, gripping the phone. "Didn't your grandson set up that security camera? You got footage?" Rick chuckled. "Sure do. Come on by. I'll show you." Robin hung up, threw a grateful nod to Tyler. "You're a lifesaver, man," and bolted out the door. At Rick's place, the old man ushered him in, proud as a peacock to play hero. They huddled over a grainy video feed, and there it was. Logan's car, clear as day, parked outside Robin's house. The license plate even matched. "Gotcha," Robin muttered, as Rick handed him a USB with the footage. "Happy to help," Rick said, clapping him on the shoulder. "You've mowed my lawn more times than I can count. This one's on me." Buzzing with adrenaline, Robin set up a quick meet with John, his one ally from work. They grabbed a booth at a diner and Robin laid it all out. The video, the Logan Glorious link, the whole twisted plot. John leaned back, whistling low. "I knew it stank of a setup. Logan's gotta be the puppet master here. Probably got you canned to cover his tracks." They brainstormed, tossing ideas like a couple of amateur sleuths. "We could round up witnesses," John said. "Anyone who saw Logan acting shady, plus that video, it's a start. Take it to court, get him fired, maybe even sue for the frame job." Robin frowned. "I've got no cash, man. I'm running on fumes." John grinned. "I'll spot you some cash to get going. You've got other buddies, right? Call in some favors." For the first time in days, Robin felt a spark. Hope. Or maybe just stubbornness. He wasn't out yet. With John's loan and a plan taking shape, he gripped the USB like a lifeline. The fight was on. Robin hit the ground running, fueled by a mix of desperation and that spark John had reignited. He started dialing up every friend and acquaintance he could think of, anyone who might still have a shred of loyalty left. To his surprise, people stepped up. An old college buddy chipped in a few $100 with a gruff, "You do the same for me." A former coworker sent some cash via an app with a note, "Get 'em, man." Then came the jackpot. A high school pal, now a grizzled truck driver, offered to hook him up with a private investigator he knew. "This guy's a bloodhound. Owes me a favor," he said. Robin could have hugged the phone. With the funds trickling in, he hired a sharp-eyed lawyer, not the wrinkled suit guy from before, but someone with a handshake that said, "I've got this." Meanwhile, John turned into a one-man recon team at the office. Between coffee runs and fake chit-chat, he grilled co-workers, fishing for anyone willing to back Robin. He even tracked down the women who'd filed those damning complaints. With the private investigator's help, a wiry guy named Pete who smelled like cigarettes and justice, they cornered a couple of them off the clock. After some coaxing and Pete's knack for looking mildly terrifying, the truth spilled out. Logan had leaned on them hard. Threats of layoffs, bad references, the works, until they caved and wrote the lies about Robin. One of them teared up, muttering, "I didn't want to, but he wouldn't let up." Bingo. Robin's team now had statements, recordings, and a growing pile of dirt. The divorce hearing rolled around, and Gloria strutted in like she'd already won, her lawyer smirking beside her. She'd expected Robin to show up broken, so when he walked in with a suited-up attorney and a stack of files, her jaw tightened. Robin kicked things off, calm but firm. "I don't want anything from the marriage except my half of the $52,000. Gloria's lawyer pounced, waving the same old accusations. Robin the cheater, Robin the creep, Robin who'd supposedly blown his job chasing skirts. Gloria even flashed those laptop screenshots again, the escort service searches glowing like neon signs of guilt. But Robin was ready. "I didn't make those searches," he said, voice steady. "Gloria had access to my laptop. She could have typed them. Check the timestamps. All in one day, each site visited for, 5 seconds? It's a setup." His lawyer leaned in, sliding a report across the table. "And we've got more." He dropped the bomb. A countersuit for defamation and conspiracy, naming Gloria and Logan in a plot to tank Robin's life. The room went pin-drop silent. Gloria's smug mask slipped, and her lawyer started flipping through papers like he'd lost the script. Robin's counterattack was relentless. His lawyer called out the Logan connection, the black car on Rick's footage, the coerced co-workers, the whole twisted web. "We've got witnesses," he said, tapping the files. "Statements, video, proof my client's innocent, and that this was a coordinated hit." Gloria tried to interrupt, sputtering about the screenshots, but Robin's team had her cornered. The judge, eyebrows climbing higher with every revelation, finally banged the gavel. "This is getting messy," he said, rubbing his temples. "We're not settling this today. Hearing postponed, couple days." Robin walked out, heart pounding but head high. The divorce wasn't just a divorce anymore, it was a battlefield, and for once he had the upper hand. Gloria shot him a glare that could have melted steel, but he didn't flinch. A couple of days later, the rescheduled hearing arrived, and Robin walked in like a man with an ace up his sleeve. His lawyer stood tall beside him, armed with a briefcase stuffed with evidence, while John, Pete the PI, and a handful of loyal co-workers filled the benches behind. It was showtime. Robin kicked things off by presenting Rick's security footage, Logan's black sedan parked outside his house, time-stamped and crystal clear. "That's my boss," he said, pointing at the screen. "Or ex-boss, I guess." The judge squinted at the video, nodding slowly. Then came the cavalry. John had rallied a small army of colleagues who took the stand, one by one, shredding Logan's credibility. "He pressured us," one woman said, voice trembling but firm. "Threatened to fire if we didn't lie about Robin." Another chimed in. "Robin? He's a stand-up guy. Always helped me with my reports, never a creep." The positive testimonials piled up, painting a picture of Robin as the office saint, while Logan's house of cards started to wobble. Gloria sat across the room, arms crossed, her lawyer whispering frantically in her ear. She tried to counter with the same tired laptop screenshots, but Robin's team was ready. "Those searches? Planted," his lawyer said, waving a forensic report. "One-day spike, no pattern. Classic frame job." The judge's frown deepened as the evidence stacked higher. When the dust settled, the ruling came down like a hammer. Guilty. Gloria and Logan, caught red-handed. Logan was out of a job, fired on the spot when the company's HR got wind of the verdict, and slapped with a hefty payout to Robin for reputational damage, enough to make his eyes water. Gloria had to cough up half the $52,000 from their joint account, her smug grin long gone. Robin walked out of the courtroom a winner, shaking hands with John, Pete, and the co-workers who'd stuck by him. "Couldn't have done it without you," he said, voice thick. He settled his debts with them, cash for John, a fat tip for Pete, grateful for every dime they'd thrown his way. Later he called his parents. "Mom, Dad, it was all a lie. I'm clean," he said. Edward's gruff voice softened. "We should have trusted you, son. We're sorry." Margaret sniffled an apology through tears, and Robin felt a weight lift he hadn't even realized he was carrying. Meanwhile, Gloris and Logan were imploding. They dreamed of starting some fancy business together, maybe a boutique or a cafe, who knows. But now they were drowning in debt and fury. In a screaming match outside the courthouse, caught by a few nosy onlookers, Gloris hissed, "This is your fault!" while Logan snapped back, "You dragged me into this!" Their grand romance was crumbling faster than their bank accounts. Robin, on the other hand, was piecing his life back together. He rented a modest apartment. Nothing flashy, just a couch, a bed, and a fresh start. His old job welcomed him back, the HR mess sorted, and he slid into his desk chair like he'd never left. Word of his saga spread, thanks to a journalist buddy of John's who turned it into a local sensation. Man framed by wife and boss fights back, and wins. The story hit the internet, and suddenly Gloris and Logan were the town's resident pariahs, dodging glares at every corner. Robin leaned back in his new place, a cheap beer in hand, and smirked. Justice had rolled in, slow but sure, proving one thing. When life kicks you down, you don't just lie there, you fight. And sometimes, you win big. If you enjoyed the story, please subscribe to the channel. I wish you a great mood and good luck.